So it looks like we're headed into a little bit of a boom time for ad tech driven platforms, and a little bit of a reprieve for them, and of course all of the studios in both linear space and elsewhere, even satellite, because we're headed into a political season, and there is an awful lot of money involved in political races. Lots of it, at least in advertising, billions of dollars. And let me tell you, it could help the bottom line, at least for one quarter, because as we've heard, well, advertising dollars are headed downward. And I think that trend will continue, but this is a temporary reprieve, so let's talk about it. Here we go. So in a recent article in Variety on their Variety Intelligence platform, they decided to cover this particular realm. And I've mentioned this before, right? The political cycle actually brings a lot of money to linear television. That would be your broadcast and your satellite and your cable. But it also brings money digitally into these streaming services and, of course, to platforms like this, Rumble, YouTube, Odyssey, etc. Why? Well, because there's a lot of eyeballs that look at a lot of material and they get bombarded by ads all the time. In fact, you probably saw an ad today when you came to check out this video. There's money there. And this looks like it could be a banner year, and it's why I said a reprieve for these ad tech companies, because believe it or not, they're still going to have bad years. So let's dive into this article. The title here being Political Spend Surge Provides Temporary Relief for the Ad Market. And again, I have to agree wholeheartedly. So from the article, there has been much more chatter in the market lately about an advertising slowdown amid broader economic decline, of course. While that could still very much be the case broadly, the upcoming midterm elections are poised to be a beacon of light for the space. At least in the 2022 election cycle, it's going to smash records, with political ad spending projected to hit, this is amazing, $9.7 billion. With a B. That's right, 9.7 billion. That is a lot of money. According to the ad intelligence company Ad Impact, the 2022 political cycle is poised to be the most expensive on record. Well, that's because they're charging more for what they're doing with the ad tech space. So that's even going to outpace the 2022 presidential election. So they're spending a ton of money, and that was a lot of money. One particular side spent an exorbitant amount of money because their candidate didn't actually go out and campaign, at least not in the traditional sense. And it was pretty ridiculous if you ask me, but I'm going to move out of that political side of things and just jump on this. So there's about 3 months or so left to go till we get to the midterms, right? We're getting close. Political ad spend was at $4.88 billion at this point in the election cycle. That's crazy. While that, if you look back at 2018, that was $3.96 billion. That was the last midterm. So we are considerably ahead, nearly $1 billion ahead at this point in the political ad spending as compared to the last set of midterms. So political cycles, for the most part, and this article actually outlines this, have always revolved around the presidential cycle, for the most part. That's usually the most expensive periods of time. Now, midterm elections, at least when we get to these, well, there's a lot of issues. There's a lot of quote-unquote wedge issues, or issues that they're going to try to make wedge. And there's one that I don't think is going to have the weight that they think it does, that they really wish were more controversial now after a recent Supreme Court decision. But the ending pregnancy early folks think that they're still going to drive the bus when it comes to these political ads and political spending. I don't think they are. I think what's going to move the bus more is going to be the, medical Mary Jane, I'm going to say it that way, and of course sports betting, which I think is becoming a state-by-state issue that is probably going to enter the national spotlight as well, which again, because it's localized, I don't know if it's really going to have much effect on who you elect as individual candidates, but again, I digress. And of course, if you were a believer in science TM and believe that humanity, anthropologically can have a massive effect on the weather around you, well, they think that's going to be an issue as well. I think that's funny because I think most people now are looking at it like, well, it's, if we have any influence, it's very minuscule, despite some, trends recently. But I'm not going to get into any of that because, again, it's not something that YouTube or most of these other ad tech platforms enjoy, so we'll leave it over there. You decide for yourself. I'm not a scientist in any of those areas, so I don't, like I said, I just have an opinion. That's about it. But you're going to see those ballot measures, those wedge issues come to the forefront. Now, if you look at a breakdown in this chart of how these political ads kind of fall out as far as what platforms they prefer, you're going to see the majority of the spend fell inside the broadcast platform for the most part. You'll see that the cable, which I don't know why they don't include that in broadcast, they break it out, but you can see that ramped up as well in 2020. Radio seems to have gone up slightly. Digital went bananas, and I think you're going to see that grow. So political ad spending is definitely going to be breaking records, but not all media formats will see outsized growth. No, it's going to be more towards the ad tech platforms like where you're seeing me right now. Broadcast TV will still account for more than half of the overall spend because that's just, unfortunately, the old dinosaur that they just keep throwing their efforts at. And it's where the older people, let's be honest with you, are still viewing things. You're going to have more acknowledgement that particular ad spend is going to be shrinking. At least they acknowledge it here in the article. But you'll see a huge boost in political ad support in ad tech and digital spaces such as Twitter and Minds and Parler and Truth and Getter, etc., etc., etc. So from the CEO over at Fox, that would be Lachlan Murdoch, by the way, he said this specifically in an earnings call that was back on August 10th. He said, "We're seeing an unprecedented wave of political spending, which accelerates us as we move towards November. With a combination of political races and ballot issues across the markets, we will continue to expect this election to deliver another record midterm cycle." That's amazing, considering how much ads have slowed down. In addition to Murdoch's optimism regarding political ad spend, he mentioned that the company was not seeing any slowdown in advertising business despite reports of a broader slowdown. I wonder if that's because the audience is headed over towards Fox and far away from these other entities. And maybe that speaks to why CNN is going through changes and will continue to go through many changes. We can talk about that sometime, maybe here in the near future. But we're seeing things like this happen over, well, everywhere. Nexstar, which obviously they're about to acquire the CW, or are in the process of acquiring the CW, however you want to handle that linguistically. CEO Perry Sook said the company was benefiting from this year's strong election cycle. Wow, this is a theme, right? It says total television advertising revenue growth was 15.7%, was a record, was driving a record in the second quarter, and it's more than tripled the quarterly sequential basis and rose to about fourfold, which is 4 times, versus the comparable 2020 period, which means they're growing their advertised spend. Holy cow. And that's amazing because they're mostly linear and cable. Crazy. However, even as broadcast networks see the major dollar signs, thanks to the midterms, cord cutting is still an ongoing trend. So as a result, connected televisions, like, things that are like Vizios and other smart TVs, are actually getting a lot of stuff. CTV ads are going to be around $300 million and represented a total of 13% of the overall political ad spend. At least according to Ad Impact once again. So that share is estimated to grow to 15%, which would be equal to both cable and digital ad spend. Impressive. And it's only going to continue to grow. You can see the projection chart based on the forecast for this year and next when it comes to editorial media, cinema, etc., and what it looks like it will be in 2023, which those numbers looks like they won't have the kind of growth. In fact, there'll be a lot of retraction in various areas, including in local television ad spend, national and broadcast spend, long-form video. Those numbers are going to go down. So digital ad growth for 2022, well, it remains intact thanks to the midterm elections. But the media intelligence firm Magna Global has lowered its original forecast of 12.6% growth to 11.5% growth in 2022. And that's on the concerns of the lower than anticipated economic activity surrounding those ads, which again, on a platform like the one that you're seeing me on now, that's going to affect the bottom line for everybody, including somebody like me, because again, you have supply chain issues, persistent inflation, you name it, all kinds of macroeconomic stuff and some microeconomic stuff as well. So even as the political ad spend offers a positive outlook for the advertising market in the near term, which it does, it's merely temporary until the next major election in 2024. So there will be a cooling off for about 18 months after we're out of this election cycle. I think, it'll be quieter, which might be better for all of us. Maybe the political garbage will stop. At least you get fewer political ads for about 18 months. And then it'll fire back up. And we'll be dealing with it all over again as we head into a presidential cycle, which will be hotly contested. And I'm predicting quite the mess. But hey, those are my thoughts. And of course, I want to know yours. Actually, this is going to be different. Normally ask, what do you think? And while I'm still asking that, I want to kind of know the answer to a couple other questions. First of all, have you ever been actually influenced by a political ad? When it comes to a candidate. Now, I understand when it comes to something different, right? When it comes to, let's say, an ad for an issue. Let's say an ad issue, right? An issue. Issue-based ads, maybe. But when it comes to a candidate, don't you do your own research? Heck, even with the issues, don't you do your own research? Do you let those ads influence you? I'm just curious. If so, let me know and let me know why. If not, let me know that also, because I like to know exactly what's driving people's decision-making process, because it actually would inform kind of the way I cover things, and also, my own thinking, because again, I do like to hear feedback. It's helpful. Second, do you actually pay attention to any of those ads? I mean, literally. I mean, if you're paying attention, they either influence or you don't. But do you even bother? Do you ignore them? Do you skip them? Do you leave the room and go get a snack? I mean, what do you do when you see a political ad? Is there any ad that you stick around and watch? Is it just for stuff that you might actually be interested in the first place? I mean, I'm just curious, because as we dive deeper into this ad stuff, and again, that's kind of how YouTube operates. It makes money on ads. They kind of have a monopoly when it comes to that, but that's another video for another day. I'm just curious if anybody sticks around to watch them. I mean, I actually know that ad blockers are like employed on computers and phones and all kinds of things regularly, and a lot of people don't even see the ads that are essentially they're trying to direct to you. A lot of people skip them. So I'm just kind of curious when it comes to that. But at the same time, I'm also going to encourage you to watch other independent creators out there. I want you to support them, because they're going to cover a lot of stories like this, and some of them will do it in a little bit more in-depth way, something a little bit less politically neutral. And they're not going to get the kind of love that they need to grow, because the platforms like this one and all the other ones I'm on, they don't really favor a lot of the political discourse on their platform. They usually are focused in on the big guys when it comes to the politics stuff, which is why you've been led down kind of a monoculture kind of road for a long time, because you don't really get confronted with an opposing viewpoint. So please support those independent creators that bother to do that, because, it's good to hear a different thought once in a while and not the same one over and over and over again. I mean, let's just be fair. So you can always help them and me by just, commenting on a video, hitting the like button when you enjoy something. Heck, if you just happen to hit the like button, that's okay too. But if you don't like something, I think it's fair to hit the dislike button as well. I also think it's fair to share out content that you think other people should see, and I think that we should all be doing that on our socials as often as we can. But it also helps drive engagement, and it helps smaller channels grow, and maybe we'll catch up one day with the preferred platforms for these entities that we're streaming on all the time. And with that, I'm going to just encourage you to take care of yourself. Take care of others. Wash your hands, of course, because it's good hygiene. And until next time, bye.
Thanks for visiting today. Be sure you're subscribed and hit that for alerts.
Yay!
Of course, like and share all of the videos that you can as it helps with the algorithm. Have a great day.